Hi, it's Dwyer, gamblersadvisory.com, dwyervip.com. Remember, the opinion you should follow should be your own. Just consider this video to be a second opinion from a complete stranger online. First, I want the boxing world to remember a guy who was bigger than a trainer. This guy was a brand. He was the kind of guy, when I was growing up, where if you were watching a boxing telecast and there was a young fighter who you knew nothing about, nothing whatsoever, and as that young fighter entered the ring, if you looked over his shoulder and if you saw Duva, right, you thought to yourself, oh, this young guy must be a badass. This young guy must have skills. Duva, simply put, for many years, was one of the best trainers in the sport of boxing. There were many times where I was introduced to fighters just as a fan, not as an insider, through Duva. Let me also say, too, that Duva, with Bert Sugar and others, used to show up on boxing talk shows, right? The world was a little bit different then. He would show up on boxing talk shows with people like Marv Albert, the New York Knicks announcer, right, and other people. And he would talk about old-timers. And Duva had a point of view where he felt that the best heavyweight in history was Rocky Marciano. And let's just say that Duva had so much credibility with me personally that anytime Duva was on, I would always listen closely because I knew the guy was talking knowledge, right? Whether you agreed with Duva or not, just understand this is a guy with deep boxing roots who was associated with some of the best fighters of the last 40 years, including people like Evander Holyfield, Pernell Whitaker, right? Duva recently passed away. Let's just say in the Dwyer household, he's deeply missed. Let's talk about a fight that Keith Thurman delivered on. He delivered for us, right? There's extra money in the bank account of anyone who followed the advice given in the pre-fight video. Keith Thurman won the Battle of Unbeatens against Danny Garcia, right? Let me just say, there are a few times you're going to be watching a boxing match, you're going to be looking at a champion, and you're going to think to yourself, man, I knew the guy was good, but I didn't realize the guy was this good, right? In my opinion, and it's biased, Keith Thurman won this fight going away. I don't understand the scorecards. I know the boxing public heard that this fight was a split decision. One judge gave the fight to Danny Garcia. Another judge had it 115, 113, Keith Thurman. Not here. I thought Keith Thurman won this fight by at least, bare minimum of 4 rounds. I didn't think the fight was that close. Let me also praise Thurman's corner. Dan Birmingham is one of the elite trainers in the sport of boxing. You need to keep track of his work, right? And Thurman wins this fight really on just a superior tactical game and, in my opinion, a superior set of skills. Now, I know this video is going to be a little controversial. Let's take a step back and let's talk boxing for a moment here. Let's talk fight styles. Let's talk what makes a fighter successful, right? Let's introduce a term here. I've used it in the past in countless videos. Let's call it the pocket, right? The pocket is where a fighter is right in front of you, right? You know where he is. He knows where you are. It's a chess match. You move a piece, he moves a piece, right? But the pocket is where the other fighter is relative to you. Now, some of the elites in the sport, right? You'll notice this with Freddie Roach fighters. I guess this is a trainer-centric video here. But you'll notice it with Manny Pacquiao against anyone other than Juan Manuel Marquez, right? You'll notice it with Manny Pacquiao. You'll certainly notice it in the Miguel Cotto-Delvin Rodriguez fight with Miguel Cotto, right? Look, some elite fighters won't allow the creation of a pocket, right? Manny Pacquiao at his best is dancing around the ring. He's up on his toes. He's using his great legs to jump around the ring. You don't know where he's going to be, right? Where he's going to be is unpredictable, right? At times it's going to look like he's too far away from you. But Manny, who plays a lot of basketball when he's not in the ring, Manny knows how to drop step his front foot, right? He's a southpaw, so that front foot is his right foot. He knows how to drop that right foot and hit you with straight lefts from far away. He has what I call ring coverage. So when you're facing a Manny Pacquiao, there's no pocket to key on. You don't even get to start to play chess because Manny Pacquiao is jumping around the ring, right? He doesn't give you the opportunity to confidently know where he's going to be, right? Now, the genius of Juan Manuel Marquez, and it's really the breathtaking moments in all of their fights, is that Marquez is a master counterpuncher. Manny likes to be a lead, right? And Marquez figured out that sooner or later, Manny Pacquiao is going to want to hit him. So Marquez, in my opinion, is creating the pocket. In other words, if he goes hunting for Manny Pacquiao, Pacquiao's going to jump around the ring. You're not going to know where he is. There's no pocket to find. But if you stand still and wait for Manny Pacquiao, sooner or later, like a kid looking for candy on Halloween, Manny Pacquiao's going to knock on your door. Manny's going to come to you. And Marquez has the timing to know that when Manny comes knocking on the door, Marquez has counters all set up. So the Manny Pacquiao-Marquez fights feature Marquez on his back foot, right? He's circling in the ring, but he's doing it in a low-key way, setting traps. So when Manny jumps in on him to find him, Marquez has counter right hands, counter left hooks set up, right? That's elite level stuff. Miguel Cotto joins Freddie Roach, right? Cotto had been with an excellent trainer. I believe it was Pedro Diaz or someone like that. But he joins Freddie Roach. Freddie Roach reminds Cotto that Cotto has a great set of legs on him, right? And if Cotto moves around the ring and isn't in the pocket, then when he sees an opportunity, he can just jump in the pocket and throw down a wicked left hook. Could be to the body, could be to the head. So you're going to notice Cotto with Freddie Roach, in particular in that Delvin Rodriguez fight, not allowing a pocket to be set up, right? Much of boxing is positioning. Now let's talk about Danny Garcia. For years here, I've said Danny Garcia is what I call a mid-range hooker, right? He likes to throw predominantly power shots. When he throws power shots, they're predominantly hooks. Left hooks, right hooks. Now he does have a straight right hand that he can throw on occasion, but he prefers to throw hooks with both hands. And understand, he stands upright somewhat. You don't see Danny bobbing and weaving. Now there's a difference between Danny Garcia, Philadelphia fighter, and Joe Frazier, Philadelphia fighter who used to throw one of boxing's signature left hooks. Right? Joe Frazier's bobbing and weaving. He's moving his head up and down. Right? Joe wasn't big for a heavyweight as it is. But when Joe starts bobbing and weaving, moving his head, and coming in low. By the way, Joe was trained by one of boxing's legendary trainers, Eddie Futch, who ironically was the mentor for Freddie Roach, right? Eddie trained Freddie when Freddie was a fighter. Well, anyway, with Joe Frazier, you don't know the entry point, right? Joe could throw lunging left hooks from distance. Joe could also come up close and hit you with left hooks, right? Joe Frazier had an inside game. That's him getting underneath Ali, working over Ali's ribcage in the Thriller in Manila. Well, Danny Garcia, who has the great left hook, right? Must be a Philly thing, right? Danny has the great left hook, but he's not Joe Frazier. Right? Danny's not bobbing and weaving. There's no vertical component to Danny's game. Also, Danny doesn't want to jump inside as far inside as Joe Frazier was able to do. Nor does Danny want to be lunging with punches from outside like Joe Frazier used to do. No, Danny is a mid-range hooker. In other words, he's predominantly upright. He wants to operate at mid-range, right? Within arm's reach. He's not dealing with a drop foot like Manny Pacquiao. No, he wants to be within arm's reach. He wants a clean pocket, and that's important, right? He wants you to be in front of him. And to get leverage, because he's throwing predominantly hooks from mid-range, he needs his feet to be a certain space apart. Right? Danny also needs his opponent to be somewhat upright, because a lot of Danny's game is to start to throw hooks, look away, start to throw hooks. You don't know if the hook's going to hit you high or hit you low. Well, let's say, and I know they're different weight classes. Let's say Danny were fighting Joe Frazier, right? Well, Joe would eliminate the possibility of getting hit with a high hook by staying low, wouldn't he? In fact, let's go further. Isn't that what Rocky Marciano would do? Right? Fighters get low so they don't have to worry about other things. But Danny wants you predominantly upright, right? And while Danny is an excellent counterpuncher, right? You throw punches at him, he can counter with the hooks. He wants his construct to lead. In other words, while he's counterpunching, he wants you in front of him. He wants to engage in warfare. Not guerrilla warfare, right? He wants you in front of him. He wants you on the battlefield. He doesn't want a guy who's not going to be in the pocket. Enter Keith Thurman, right? Now, Thurman's a fascinating character. I personally picked Sean Porter over Keith Thurman, and Thurman fought a magnificent fight. Right? That fight could have gone either way, but Thurman fought a magnificent fight. Thurman's reputation was as a puncher. Thurman's right hand is one of the best punches in boxing. But the revelation with Thurman is that Thurman has advanced boxing skills. Folks, this is an A+ performance. This tape is how to beat a mid-range hooker. First round, Thurman comes out. Thurman collapses the pocket. There's not going to be a clean pocket for Danny Garcia. Thurman's on his front foot. Let me go one step further. Thurman doesn't take on Garcia head on. Thurman's on his front foot, but Thurman's the kid at Halloween who knocks on your side door, not your front door. Thurman's coming in at angles. In other words, the two guys are in the ring, they circle a little bit. Thurman comes in over here, right? He's coming at Danny, but he's coming inside doors. Garcia doesn't know what to do. There's no pocket. Thurman's up on him, and he's throwing big right hands. You'll notice Garcia starts to back up in that first round, right? Thurman's coming in at odd angles. He's hyper aggressive. Danny doesn't have the clean pocket he needs, right? He isn't able to put his feet apart like he wants to set up his foundation. The tempo of the fight is all haphazard. Thurman's not throwing hooks. Thurman's throwing straight punches that get there faster. So Danny starts to back up. The difference is Danny Garcia on his back foot, in my opinion, doesn't have great offense. Right? This isn't James Toney. Dare I say, this isn't Keith Thurman. Right? Some fighters on their back foot, you're still at risk. Not with Danny Garcia. If you collapse the pocket like Keith Thurman does repeatedly early in this fight, and if you get Danny Garcia on his back foot, you're at an advantage. So the Keith Thurman strategy for the first half of this fight is not to fight at mid-range, it's to fight at short range. He's collapsing the pocket. He's aggressive. He's establishing that he hits harder than Danny Garcia. Right? It's so bad that in the first round, Thurman races in at one point, right? Throws bombs. Garcia is open. Thurman throws a bomb from an odd angle. Garcia's hurt. Thurman tries to end the fight early because Thurman knows he has nothing to fear. If Danny's not in his mid-range comfort zone, fighting the fight at the tempo and with the spacing that Danny likes. We get to the second half of the fight. Now I understand the critics want to call this running, right? What I want those critics to do is to sit down and talk with one of boxing's elite promoters, Oscar De La Hoya. Get a second point of view. Right? Because De La Hoya, of course, fought Felix Trinidad. Same type thing. Felix was supposed to be the big bad wolf. Right? Oscar deconstructs him boxing-wise early in that fight. And over the last 3 rounds of the fight, Oscar then starts showing us his superior foot speed. Keith Thurman, after 6 rounds, has clearly established that he's the superior fighter at short range against Danny Garcia. So then we get to the last third of the fight, right? Rounds 9, 10, 11, and 12. Keith Thurman then decides he's gonna stop being short range, and he's now gonna be long range, right? Understand, Danny wants to fight at mid-range. So, you're going to notice in the later rounds that there's a profound, and it's profound, foot speed gap between these two fighters. Right? Keith Thurman just moves from point A to point B far faster than Danny Garcia. Also, while Danny needs his feet set a certain way to throw power shots, Keith Thurman doesn't. Keith Thurman is able to work off a jab while moving. The last 4 rounds of this fight are basically Keith Thurman showing us that he could hit Danny in the face with a jab, move away, cause Danny to reset, and while Danny's resetting, Thurman could come back with more jabs or an occasional right hand. It's a dominant performance. If you just focus on the fighter's feet, it's a mismatch, right? Danny looks off balance much of the last 4 rounds. Danny looks like he's trying to catch up to Keith Thurman. Keith Thurman looks on balance, right? Looks like he can move his feet, is much faster than Danny, has Danny chasing him around the ring, in my opinion, like a lost puppy. So, at the end of this fight, I was baffled. Thurman delivered, got the win, but I was baffled at the closeness of the scorecards. You look at the end of the 12th round, Thurman's in complete control, in my opinion, and when the bell sounds, Thurman puts his hand up, and I didn't get the feeling that Thurman thought that he was doing anything other than putting the exclamation point on what should have been a multi-round unanimous decision. Right? Let me say this too. I want you to compare and contrast the last few rounds of this fight to the last few rounds of Danny Garcia's fight against Lamont Peterson. It's the same thing. Danny looks like he's wearing cement shoes. Right? Peterson is moving around the ring fluidly, causing Danny to reset, not allowing the creation of a pocket that Danny will feel comfortable operating from. Shooting jabs, using movement, keeping Danny off balance. Here, Keith Thurman does that one better. Thurman actually mixes in some power shots. Now, boxing has some optical illusions going on, right? Danny Garcia probably does better, probably lands more meaningful punches over the last 4 rounds than he did over the first 6. But simply because Danny's doing better later in the fight than he was earlier in the fight doesn't mean he's winning the later rounds. Doesn't mean he's doing better than Keith Thurman. Right? Danny's doing better than how he was doing earlier in the fight. He's not doing better than Keith Thurman. Right? This fight really was a boxing lesson. The fighter who's able to operate at short range, at long range, at different angles, at different tempos, will beat a relatively upright mid-range hooker who wants to only operate at mid-range with a defined pocket at a certain tempo that allows him to set his feet. So I personally thought Keith Thurman won this fight going away. I think we need to keep an eye on the welterweight division. It's getting interesting. At this point, I believe boxing would be put down at the highest level. Probably the best fight I can think of between 2 guys on a skill level. Because Thurman really is special, folks. This is high-level stuff, right? Big puncher with big-time boxing skills, both inside, up close, and far away, right? Can be light on his feet when he wants to be, can be stiff-legged when he wants to be, right? I believe for the hardcore boxing fan, if you want to see the ultimate chess match, We need for Terrence Crawford to come up from 140 to take on Keith Thurman at 147. Right? In my opinion, that would be the sport at its absolute best. Right? You have a great fight coming up in middleweight that deserves more, attention than it's getting. Golovkin against Danny Jacobs. I believe Crawford against Thurman might be fought at an even higher level, right? Because a lot of that fight, you would be sitting there thinking, gee, what strategies are the guys going to use? And both Crawford and Thurman can operate inside and outside. I would expect, because of Thurman's size and punching power, Thurman would probably be favored in the fight, right? But let's just say I wouldn't expect Thurman to have the level of success against Crawford that he just had against Danny Garcia, right? I thought it was a convincing win by Thurman. I understand there's a different set of opinions out there, right? I've read some of the commentary here online. I understand many people agreed with the judge who had it 115, 113 for Garcia. I understand there's a storyline out there that Thurman should have been punished by the judges for running, as Oscar De La Hoya was punished by the judges for supposedly running against Felix Trinidad. Let's have the discussion. Give me your thoughts on the fight in the comments section to the video, right? I understand there are many Danny Garcia fans out there. Look, there's nothing wrong with mid-range hooking against the right opponent. Thurman was too skilled to fall for that, right? Let me hear from you. I hope you leave your comments in the comment section to this video. Thanks for stopping by.